Thankful Leper is a street ministry here in Des Moines. I go out and do outreach. Actually, I have a journal that I like to go out and beat my feet for Jesus Christ and go out and find people in Christ that are my family members that are in need of spiritual guidance. They're brokenhearted. They need love, and they need to know that they are loved. And I try to help provide them with material things that they need that society turns an eye to.
So you didn't tell me about how you got started, and I think from what I read on the website, it all kind of starts in Texas.
It does.
Yeah, so maybe help me with that. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to doing this.
Well, I was homeless for many years in Dallas, Texas. I was living in an alley behind a fire station, and one night a storm had came and it totally destroyed my campsite. All my medicines got wet, my food got wet, my blankets got wet, and it was late. It was real late. Society had already gone to bed. There was no one else for me to turn to for help. So I just patience, and I'm tired of being sick, cold, and hungry. And the rain still kept coming. Lightning was coming. I had tree limbs falling down on me and on my dumpster, that is. So I just decided to take a walk to a free newspaper machine to get all the publications that the box had. And I remember that publication to this day. It was called the Dallas Observer. And I was walking back to my dumpster in the rain and the tears, and I thought to myself, why doesn't society observe homelessness? I mean, they think that they do when they fund those big name agencies, but in reality, they don't do as half as much as the society likes to think that they do.
Yep.
Often there's a big long waiting list. Many of them are corrupt. It's a horrible situation. So I took those publications and I climbed in that dumpster. Now I was able to see out of both eyes. As you can see, I only have one eye now today, but I was able to see out of both eyes when I climbed in that publications and cried myself to sleep. And as I was crying myself to sleep, I was wiping the tears from my eyes, and I did eventually manage to get to sleep, but when I woke up the next morning, I had eye pain and I had other problems going on in my inner body. And having advanced AIDS, I was really afraid that I was going to die. Now, I forgot all about that prayer when I woke up the next morning because I had those issues I had to deal with all the pains in my body. So I realized I needed to get to the hospital. I needed to get to the hospital fast. So I climbed out of that dumpster, and it was just about lunchtime, getting ready to start lunch, about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and Chris was setting up his valet stand. He's a valet attendant at a restaurant next door at my campsite in the alley. And I explained to Chris what happened. I was asking him for some change to get to Parkland Hospital there in Dallas. And as a $1 million fancy car, and
Uh-huh.
the man gets out and had heard what had asked Chris because his window was down, and he said from behind me to Chris, "Don't give him no change to get to the hospital." And my right eye was already teared up because it was in a lot of pain, but now my left eye was starting to tear up because I thought, who could say something like that? I was really starting to cry. I thought, who could say that? And so as I turned around and asked the man why would he say such a thing, he had $100 bill in his hand, and he had actually even heard my name. And when I was talking with Chris, because Chris had said, "Bobby, I don't have it right now, I just started," but he said, "Bobby, I'll get you to the hospital," and he was handing me $100 bill. And now he was on my right side, the bad side, so I couldn't see who that was, and so I turned a little further there, and Lord and behold, it was Tony Romo, the Dallas Cowboys. Tony Romo. I didn't really think, and so we actually had about a 7 minute conversation. So I got to talk with Tony for a little bit, but I think that was God's way of saying, Bobby, I have heard your prayer, and I'm now answering you. But however, I had not picked up on it at that point. I had these pains going on, so I needed to get to the hospital. I did manage to eventually make it to the hospital, and I managed, of course, I'll live by the grace of God. But while I was there, the hospital staff swung into quick action to get me Social Security disability benefits. And you guys probably don't know anything about Social Security, but it's really, really challenging to get it. It takes months, sometimes even years. But those folks actually got it for me practically overnight, and I think that God had a hand in that again. So there's a couple of different things that's going on. We see God in action after that prayer.
Mhm.
So after I got my first check, back to my alley, back to the dumpster. You guys are probably wondering why. I had friends in that alley, and I wanted to move them in with me, and so I did. And I remember that campsite, that dumpster